Hello everybody, this is Jacob Lawler here with a intro how-to video on handling a buyer escrow. Step 1, the overview and the organization of an escrow. So before we begin on the how-tos, just take a minute just to kind of celebrate this win that you just had, because I don't know if this is your first escrow or this is the first escrow that you really kind of say, you know what, last escrow I pulled my hair out. I'm going to do this one a little bit better. But take a minute just to celebrate this win that you've had, because opening an escrow is by no means a small feat. I don't know how you met this client, if you met them at open house. I mean, how many open houses did you have to do to find that client? How many houses did you have to show them for them to pick one? Maybe you've even written a number of offers for them, but congrats on getting their offer accepted. Opening escrow is a tremendous feeling and it definitely deserves some celebration. So congrats to you. That being said, do not start spending your commission dollars yet, because the work has only just begun. Now, escrow can be a long, arduous, strenuous time, but luckily we're going to be here to really help expedite this process and make it as pain-free as possible. But a very common thing that I've run in with agents and coaching and training is agents start spending the money in their own head. They start thinking about either the car they're going to buy or put a down payment on, or they start shopping for items in their house or anything along those lines. But definitely do not spend the commissions yet. Escrows do fall out. There's a long time, whether it be a 30-day escrow, a 45-day escrow, or if you're dealing with an all-cash transaction, as quickly as they can get the funds in. But the work has only just begun. Now, this is going to be part 1 of a 5-part series on how to handle an escrow. This is the overview and the organization of the escrow. So this is all about how do you set yourself up to win? How do you actually start an escrow in the right way? Step 2, video 2 that we're going to do is all about the introductions and starting off on the right foot. Sometimes a very complicated part about escrow is the communication between you and all of the parties. So it's all about how to do a correct introduction, how to make sure that you have an efficient and effective introduction, and also how you start off on the right foot with the other agent, with the lenders, with escrow, with all the parties that need to come into play. So that whole video 2 is all about the introductions and starting off on the right foot. Step 3 is all about the physical inspection, handling the request for repairs. For agents that I work with, physical inspections can often be a daunting task on, what documents do I need to get? Should the client be there? Should the client not be there? Who should attend? When should I schedule it? This is all step by step, purely on physical inspections, the subsequent inspections should they require them, and also on how to actually handle the request for repairs. Video 4, all about the appraisal, getting loan approval, and the inevitable contingency removals that we have to do, and how to handle that in a tactful way, how to get the client on board, but also how to make sure that you don't unnecessarily remove contingencies or prematurely remove contingencies, because then that could put your client at risk for losing their initial deposit. And then step 5 is going to all about closing escrow and those last minute hiccups, how to prevent them, the most common ones that we've been running into and how we've been able to handle them. So I'm very excited that you guys are starting this 5-part series, and I really hope that you get some good benefit and take some good notes. Starting off, communication of an escrow is key. Oftentimes, agents will kind of open the escrow and kind of go dark on everybody. We have to really be, when we're in escrow, the facilitator of the entire transaction. Regardless of whose quote-unquote responsibility it is to handle a certain task, make sure you're the person who's always confirming, over-communicate as opposed to under-communicate. There's a whole lot of reasons to over-communicate rather than under-communicate, but I can promise you that if you have a doubt in your mind about if something's going to get done, communicate with them. Communicate with your clients. Has to be on a daily basis, because I can promise you, even if you're nervous, I can promise you that a client is 10 times more nervous, because this is the house that they're going to live in, and they want to know what's going on a daily basis. So communication is key with your clients, communication with your transaction coordinator, communication with the lender, communication with the other agent, communication with escrow, and sometimes even with title if there needs to be a problem. This is an emotional process for everybody involved, yourself included, because this is how you're making your mortgage payment or rent payment or whatever you're doing, but also this is the client's house that they're purchasing, and it's their dollars on the line. So clients may sometimes seem to act irrational or illogical. We've heard of escrows falling out for $150 microwave, where at the heart of it, it's really not the microwave that's really at the core issue of the problem. This is a hugely emotional process that we also have to realize that clients, they have lives outside of this transaction. So oftentimes there might be family issues going on. There might be an internal battle if it's, with the two spouses, like a husband and wife or anything along those lines. There could be battles between them that may affect this huge emotional decision that they're making. So just understand that clients may sometimes act irrational or illogical just because of the emotion that's involved in this transaction. Along those lines, oftentimes clients will seemingly lash out at you for no reason because there's a huge pent-up emotion that's being involved in this, and clients sometimes do lose their temper. We just have to understand that's a part of this business. It's not necessarily that they're mad at you. They're frustrated at the situation. They're overwhelmed. Sometimes they're not even sure during some parts of this transaction that it's even right for them to even buy at all, whether it be this house, whether it be the time in the market, whatever it may be. Clients get frustrated, overwhelmed, and they will lash out. Just understand it's not meant towards you. Assuming you're following the steps in these videos on making sure you don't screw up or you're not the cause, there's always going to be little hiccups, things, people who drop the ball. Hopefully it's not you, keeping your side of the street clean, but clients will lash out. They will. I've had many clients yell at me when I was in my sales career, and most of my day is dealing with putting out fires on the other side of transactions, whether it be clients or other agents or other brokers or oftentimes other attorneys on the other line. But understand that it's not meant to be them being upset at you. It's the situation. It's the transaction. Tons of stuff going on with that. So are you scared yet? Maybe by that intro, you're kind of saying, good God, maybe I got into the wrong business. But I can promise you, don't worry, because let's get into how to prevent unnecessary problems and how to properly handle an escrow. So this is generally how an escrow works. In the very beginning, usually the first 3 to 7 days, there's a whirlwind of activity, communication, coordination, all of this stuff going on. After that, there's kind of 2 to 3 weeks of just waiting, feeling like you forgot to do something. And that's one of the most common things that I hear from agents, especially on their first transactions, is they'll kind of give me a call and say, well, okay, Jacob, that's great. I did all this, but I feel like I should be doing something. But generally there's this lull period. If there's no, big issues that we have to handle or anything like that, there's usually a period of waiting where the lender's getting some documentation. It's more going to be on the lender side if you are using one, unless it's a cash transaction, which props to you for getting a cash buyer. And then at the end of the escrow is usually another whirlwind of activity, coordinating those last minute loan conditions, getting in all those last minute details, coordinating possession and all of that. So generally in the very beginning, lucky for you because that's where we are, a whirlwind of activity, then 2 to 3 weeks of waiting, feeling like you forgot to do something, you're kind of getting nervous, and then a whirlwind of activity at the end. So let's talk about steps to a great start of an escrow, because that's really what we were talking about today, is that overview, the steps of getting started. Step 1, make sure you get the fully executed contract. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to an agent who they've been talking to me about ordering inspections, ordering this, getting their clients to put in money to escrow, and I ask, okay, perfect, so can you send me the fully executed contract? And they'll just send over that last counter offer. Make sure you get the fully executed contract, meaning all pages of the initial offer, all of the counter offers, all of the added addenda that you put into the initial offer. Everything has initials, everything has signatures, everything is dialed in. Then you want to organize your important dates to the transaction. The important dates, which we're going to go over a little bit later in this video, making sure you get all the dates dialed in prior to you just going off and acting. Then connect with your transaction coordinator. Yes, you should use a transaction coordinator. A lot of people feel like they shouldn't use one because they do have an added cost, but I can promise you, do not get bogged down with the paperwork. You are at a much higher use of your time. Instead of taking care and chasing that 1 or 2 initials or getting all the paperwork coordinated, go out to go get that other escrow. Okay? Step 4, forwarding all necessary documents to the lender as soon as possible, because the lender is going to need to get started on that file, and they need all the documentation before they can really submit the file for processing and underwriting. Then coordinating the physical inspection, making sure that those get all set up, connecting with escrow and coordinating the initial deposit, which is what we're going to go over next video, and finally connecting with your clients. I cannot stress that enough, to connect with your clients on a regular basis so they know that you're taking care of them every single step of the way. So, assuming that you've already gotten the contract, right? Get out a calendar to make sure that you really dial in what are going to be the steps with the dates, the timelines. That way you prioritize your activities instead of just running around like a chicken with their head cut off. So questions I usually get are, what are the important dates for me to have on hand at all times? Step 1 is you want the date of acceptance. Okay, so a date of acceptance is not the date that your initial offer was signed. The definition of the acceptance date is the time when that final party accepted, whether it be the initial offer, whether it be a counter offer. So let's say that you did the initial offer as the buyer's agent. Then the listing agent had the sellers sign it, and the sellers accepted it right there on the spot that same night. It is not technically accepted until that seller communicated the acceptance to the buyer, or if you are authorized to accept on their behalf. When that communication happens, let's say it's the day after, that day after is technically the date of acceptance. Now, on our contract here in California, it does have a timeline and an initials and date area where it says confirmation of acceptance, which should be used for the time when the buyer gets the acceptance communicated back to them for them to initial. It's not technically required, but highly recommend it in order to get that time frame. Due date of initial deposit. By default in our contract, 3 business days after acceptance. So again, write that down. And again, it is business days, but still I would recommend getting the client to come in as quickly as possible. Next, you want to know the due dates of the contingency removals. Now, the main 3 that we really deal with is the inspection contingency, which by default is 17 days in the contract. Number 2, the appraisal, which is again 17 days by default in the contract. And number 3, the loan approval, which by default in our contract is 21 days. Now, all 3 of those dates can be modified, so if you've changed those for different reasons in your offer, then make sure that you act accordingly with that. And those are calendar days, not business days. Close of escrow, again, if you wrote a 30-day close of escrow, a 45-day, or whatever you wrote in, make sure that you track that down. And the date of possession transfer. It's fairly common whenever it's an owner-occupied transaction to give the seller, say, 3 days to move out. So just make sure you have those dates. So those few dates are really the most important. So make sure to take the time now to take out a calendar. I just like to print out a blank calendar and just write those dates in. Or if you want to take it a step further, have it on your electronic calendar so that it sends you updates. That way you know what to do. Something to note on the due dates for inspection, the appraisal, and loan contingency. Count 17 calendar days, but if the 17th day falls on a weekend or a holiday, a recognized holiday, it would be the following calendar day. So the last day of performance cannot be on a weekend or holiday, something to keep in mind. So that being the case, escrows can be frustrating. Absolutely. They are hugely emotional processes, both for you and your clients and everybody involved. But good God, do not be this guy. Do not let an escrow stress you out. One of the rules that we live by here is prospecting solves all problems. So do not spend all of your time babying an escrow. Understand that some escrows do fall out. It is a process. All you can do is what you can control, which is how you respond to situations. Don't be so stressed out of every situation. Make sure you take the time at the beginning to plan out your attack. Don't start off in a whirlwind of activity. Come with a planned activity on how to do this. So I hope this was helpful. So if you are ready for part 2, meaning you have already gone through the steps, you've already planned out your attack, you've already put in the important dates, click the video or click the button down below for the introductions and starting off on the right foot. I hope this was helpful. Again, Jacob Lawler, talk to you soon.